You probably heard about the protest plans of Amazon employees to walk out on Prime Day and fight against terrible working conditions at Amazon. While this will only last a couple of hours, these few hours could end up costing Amazon tens of millions of dollars, as it is actually during Prime Day, one of Amazon's best-selling days of the year. In fact, last year the company sold over 100 million products and garnered tens of millions of additional Prime members on this day. And did I mention that Prime Day only lasted 36 hours last year, which has since been increased to 48 hours this year? And what about the hundreds of thousands of unhappy customers who won't get their packages delivered on time, as they wouldn't have been shipped on time from the warehouse? Fortunately, these consequences won't be too bad, as while large, these losses can be sustained by a company as large as Amazon, and the unhappy customers will mostly forget about it and move on. But what if this wasn't a temporary issue? What if Amazon completely shut down today? Maybe this is because the US government got so fed up with Amazon not paying sales taxes that instead of issuing a fine or modifying the tax laws, they completely shut down Amazon. How would Amazon shutting down affect our lives today? The first and probably most significant issue that comes to sight is job loss. Over 650,000 people would lose their jobs, mostly in the US. This would be so significant that the national unemployment rate would increase from the all-time lows of 3.6 to 3.7% to 4%. While this may not sound like a lot, this is actually an 11% increase. This massive increase of unemployed people will no doubt lead to an increase in government spending for unemployment benefits by hundreds of millions of dollars. And with tax rates being slashed just a couple of years ago, the government would be forced to borrow money, cut back spending in other regions, or of course, increase the tax rate. To make matters even worse, with Amazon being such a large corporation, the overall GDP of the US itself will noticeably decrease. GDP, or Gross Domestic Product, is the total value of final goods and services produced within a country's borders, and it is calculated by summing together total private consumption, gross investment, government spending, and exports, and then subtracting imports from all of that. Amazon pulls in over $200 billion of revenue every single year, which is all either domestic consumer spending, exports to other countries, or investment from other companies for Amazon offerings like their cloud system AWS. So, a decrease in all of these categories will decrease the US GDP. On the bright side, imports would also decrease, but that's not nearly enough to offset the decrease in the other categories. And that's just a direct impact of Amazon shutting down. There will also be long-term indirect effects on the GDP as well. Think about the 650,000 employees that were fired and all of their families. They won't be spending nearly as much as they are now until they are well settled into a new job, which could take several months. All of this will decrease the US GDP by hundreds of billions of dollars, maybe even upwards of $1 trillion. Now, that's a pretty significant portion when you consider that the US GDP is $19.39 trillion. To prevent massive losses in GDP, the government will significantly increase spending and try to combat these decreases, but that can only go so far. And despite their efforts, the US GDP is bound to decrease a couple of percentage points without Amazon. So what's the big deal? It's just a couple of percentage points, right? Well, even a slight decrease in GDP can impact currency exchange rate, purchasing power, and most importantly, consumer confidence. In simple terms, foreign goods will increase in price and people will be less likely to spend money, which can lead to an additional decrease in GDP. This type of repeated cycle is actually what leads to a depression like in 2008. But fortunately for us, while Amazon is a massive company, it is not big enough that the US economy itself would collapse and enter a depression without them. That being said, this will lead to a pretty deep trough in the business cycle graph, and this accompanied with some other factors like the trade war could result in devastating consequences. And that's not even considering the impact on Amazon sellers and the repercussions of that as well. In just the first 7 months of 2019, Amazon has increased its seller count by 1.03 million sellers. Clearly, most of these people don't even end up listing a product, but there are 1.7 million sellers with products listed for sale. Of these people, 140,000 third-party sellers generate over $100,000 in revenue every single year, which equates to a pretty decent salary. All of these sellers would have to migrate to eBay, Etsy, or some other third-party selling website, where they may not find nearly as much success as there will be a lot of new obstacles. A lot of these sellers will be used to Amazon fulfilling all of their orders, and while the fees may be something to complain about, the convenience is truly extraordinary. Amazon handles everything from receiving inventory to ensuring that the product is delivered to the customer on time. They even handle returns and customer service. But here, sellers will either have to find a third-party fulfillment service or take shipping into their own hands. A lot of these sellers will definitely not be up to these tasks and end up liquidating their inventory and moving back into a day job or focus on something else like stock or real estate investing. Plus, if Amazon were to disappear, only a portion of their sales traffic will end up in other online websites. The rest of the demand will shift towards retail stores or just disappear into thin air, as a lot of things people purchase online are things they really don't need in the first place. So, logistically, not all successful sellers on Amazon will be able to continue in their entrepreneurial ventures without Amazon. Fortunately for retailers, however, this would reignite a good amount of interest in visiting physical retail stores, and this would be good and bad at the same time. Retail giants like Walmart, Target, and Best Buy that have adapted to the online trend and transitioned their stores to more of a junction point for shipping of online orders and handling returns will have to take a lot of steps backwards. They will have to spend more money on more employees to run checkout and help customers, and pay more people to restock shelves as there's more demand. And of course, all of these will increase costs for these retailers and will lead to an increase in in-store prices. If you haven't noticed already, prices online for all of these retailers are cheaper than in-store. I think it is self-explanatory why online prices would be cheaper. While these retailers do offer price matching with their online prices, they are betting that most customers won't actually follow through with this. This is because the prices are not vastly different from most products, usually less than $1, but as you get into more expensive products, you may start to see a meaningful difference. So while the death of Amazon would be good for retailers as there would be increased traffic to their online and physical stores, this would negatively affect the consumer as prices would be more expensive in store and as a matter of fact online as well due to significantly reduced competition. Plus, I think that the retailers, or at least the successful retailers that have adapted to recent trends, would actually prefer you buy on their websites anyways, as it saves them money as well. On top of all of this, consumer convenience would also drastically be impacted as people would have to change a lot of their daily habits. People would have to change where they shop online, and they may have to deal with slower shipping times. Everyone watching Prime Video would have to switch over to Netflix or Hulu, and Kindle owners would no longer receive updates, and everyone used to Alexa will eventually have to switch over to Google or to Siri or Cortana. Fortunately, there are plenty of alternatives, but it is an inconvenience nonetheless. These are all just impacts on the US consumers, but what about the effects on companies? Well, the industry Amazon is directly linked to is the mail industry, as they, well, have to ship all of their products. Amazon has started to handle a lot of their own shipments in order to increase efficiency and reduce shipping costs, but billions of dollars of shipping still go to UPS, FedEx, DHL, and USPS. Eventually, this change would have still occurred, but it would have been much more gradual and predictable. Shipping carriers would have been able to scale back accordingly and prevent millions of dollars of sudden losses. They could cut back on unprofitable routes and focus in different areas. But if this change were to happen unexpectedly, they won't be able to prevent unnecessary losses. Okay, so with all of these losses everywhere, these devastating losses must carry on to Jeff Bezos and all of the investors in Amazon too, right? Well, yes and no. First of all, just because Amazon shuts down doesn't mean that their stock price will drop to zero. Amazon's market cap is just a little shy of $1 trillion, and while a lot of that value is derived from their services, they actually have $178 billion worth of assets. This includes things like their planes, trucks, warehouses, equipment, acquisitions like Whole Foods and Twitch, and subsidiaries as well. So even if Amazon.com itself were to shut down, these assets would still be liquefiable and could be paid out to stock investors if needed. Even if they were only able to sell all of their assets for $150 billion, all of their shareholders would be fine. When you take into consideration the price of Amazon stock, which is currently over $2,000, it is clear that only serious stock investors with a significant amount of money would be investing in Amazon, and Amazon will be by no way definitive of their wealth or well-being. So even if they were to completely lose their Amazon stock, they really wouldn't be affected very much. And as for Jeff Bezos, the largest stockholder of Amazon, even he only owns 16% of Amazon. So if Amazon were to be liquidated at $150 billion, which is very conservative, he would still receive $24 billion pre-tax. And plus, Amazon isn't the only place he keeps his money. In fact, Jeff Bezos has been liquidating $1 billion of stock every single year to help fund his space company, Blue Origin. So while Jeff Bezos may lose more money than what the second richest person has, this will actually not affect him very much at all in terms of lifestyle, as he would still be one of the wealthiest people on the planet. So yes, Jeff Bezos and Amazon stock investors will lose a lot of money, but would it matter? Not really. Thus, if Amazon were to shut down, it would actually be the American people who would be affected the most. Executives and stockholders will walk away without much of a noticeable difference, as they usually are able to, with the best example of this being Toys R Us executives. It will be the hundreds of thousands of ordinary Amazon employees that will be displaced. It will be the US economy that will decline. It will be the shipping companies that Amazon has arguably taken advantage of that will have to restructure their system. Even if for some reason Amazon executives were to lose all of their money, they are just a couple of people, and the effect of the disappearance of Amazon will be much greater on the US public than any of them. It is the public that will have to deal with the declining economy, as well as reduced competition and increased prices in a variety of different niches, from online shopping to video streaming. Fortunately, the government is well aware of all of these potential negative effects, and as a result, we will not be seeing a shutdown, at least not a government-induced shutdown of Amazon anytime soon. In the end, Amazon has grown to affect our lives in more ways than we consider, and today, a world without Amazon would actually be much worse for us than it would be for Amazon. But that's all I have for you guys on Amazon. Make sure to comment down below what you would like me to cover next. Also, if you guys like this video, then make sure to drop a like and consider subscribing if you'd like to see more videos just like this one. But until then, I'm Hari, and I'll see you guys on the next one.